come out, I said, oh, I was half cut, I was drunk. And I said, oh, Aunt, I can't remember this, but this is what happened. I said, oh, Aunt, I'm going to take my bike to the bottom of the street and back, purely just showing off. Lost control of the bike. Head first straight into a concrete pillar. I broke my neck in 4 places, my back in 3 places. And they told my family that if he wakes up, he's going to be in a vegetative state. To me, I didn't go through any of that. I was out, do you know what I mean? They had to go through it all. And it was all just to show off. I went in hospital when I was 19 as an inpatient. I came out when I was 21.
What's going on, people? Welcome to the Central Club. This episode is brought to you by Re-Inspire Printing and Kesto and Hurt So Good. Before we start, if you're watching on YouTube, again, we're in a different venue. First of all, I want to say a big shout out to Kesto and the graffiti gang here in Barry who have let us use their facility whilst we're waiting for our new studio. Yes, we've left the original studio, which is, again, bittersweet. We've created some great memories there, but time to move on for many reasons. And although we're waiting for the venue, we're just not wanting to rush it in. So a big thank you to Kesto and the gang. Today's guest is the first of its kind here on the Central Club, but ironically enough, rather relevant to life and this podcast. We look back a few weeks ago, we had Javeno Maclean, probably one of the most inspirational guests we've interviewed, who has chose his life to inspire, encourage, and to destigmatize people with disabilities, especially those with ones in wheelchairs. Also, to add to the relevancy in life, we only have to look back a couple of weeks ago in our beautiful city of Cardiff to see that someone well-known and loved lost his life due to an RTA. The man sat next to me today was clearly a lot luckier than those who fell victim, and he's here today to tell his story. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you, Mr. Ashley Davies.
How's it going, all right?
Yeah, thank you for coming.
No worries, anytime.
How's things?
Yeah, not bad. Yeah, big fan of the podcast. Bumped into you in town and we're here, so yeah, all good.
Yeah, should we tell people how it happened? So I was in work and I heard someone calling me. And I noticed it weren't on my wavelength. I know I'm tall anyway, but it weren't and I was I looked round and I got this guy in a wheelchair, what's happening, mate? I'm oh, what's going on? And that's how we met. Mate, you've got a crazy story.
It's a bit abnormal, isn't it? A bit different.
Yeah, well, it's the first of our kind, and I think it's really important to get on. So we will toss it up a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to know, first of all, what's your favourite podcast?
Central Club. Stay Central.
Favourite episode?
Favourite episode, Posh Pete.
Really?
Yeah, Posh Pete, yeah.
Fucking hell, that's the first I've heard of that.
Yeah, I just thought it was surprising, do you know what I mean? How can someone...
So posh,
like he says himself, do you know what I mean? How can he do all that? I was thinking...
Yeah, and a lot of people, I still can't fathom it, but,
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a mad character, isn't he?
Yeah.
No,
imagine someone sat on a train asking him why he quit uni, do you know what I mean? Not a long train journey, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so for the people, obviously I've given the introduction there a bit about what this is about, and we will go into it. But first of all, we like to take it back with a guest, and I just want to know, who was a young Ashley Davies?
So I grew up between the Valleys and Ely, so a place called Cefn I was there today actually, having a push around and that, a bit nostalgic. But yeah, I was growing up, I was on the weekends, I was living in Ely. In the week, I was living up the valley. So on the weekends, I was that taffy, and no one in Cardiff can speak to a taffy without putting on the accent. All right, but do you know what I mean? So I had a lot of stick growing up in the young days, friendly banter more than anything, until later on then when I started meeting different people from Cardiff. And then through the week then, I was the wannabe gangster who lives in Ely on the weekend. Do you know what I mean?
They're not the best of places to be between, are they? Kevin Engoid and Ely.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Joking.
Walking around the Valley's village with a flat cap and chains on, do you know what I mean? You're gonna get stick
Yeah. You're trying to fit in when you're up the valleys. You're trying to fit in when you're down the city. Must have been interesting.
Yeah, but do you know what it is? You just don't feel like you belong anywhere because you're in between. You're like, I'm different wherever I go. Do you know what I mean? Didn't really feel belonging anywhere for a long time. So that's where I felt the need to try and prove myself. And, you know, on the weekends, I'd be trying to prove myself to be like an Ely boy. And then up the valleys on the week, trying to prove that I'm not some wannabe gangster, which I probably wasn't at the time, to be honest. But yeah, just...
What was the reason for you being between both areas?
So my dad lived in Ely. My mum lived up the valleys from 1 year old. So, you know, my brother grew up in Ely, my stepbrother, and, you know, met up with his mates and grew up with them kind of thing. So it wasn't just something that happened later on in life. It was basically all my life. I've been in between. And then as soon as I moved into Ely, you know, that's when sort of life started to change a bit because there's a different normal in the city than to the valleys. You've got the valley boys who, you know, they like a laugh and drink on the weekend and things like that. You've got the Ely boys, which at the time it was about, you know, making money that however you can a lot of the time. And, you know, what's normal in Ely is not normal in the valleys, but not to a teenager anyway. Do you know what I mean? But when you get older, you realise that actually it's the same everywhere you go. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. What is Kevin Engoid like then as a place, would you say? How would you describe it?
It's got 2 pubs, a post office, 2 shops and a chip shop. But it's a hell of a laugh, do you know what I mean? The boys, they're all brilliant. All the couples get together, they have a good drink, a good laugh, and yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really, really did enjoy it up there.
And if you can describe Ely to the people who don't know what Ely is, to you, what was that?
To me, Ely was a place where sort of you never know what you're going to see in the city, do you? Whereas in the valleys, it's the same people you see every day. In Ely, you see different people. And as you say, you know, what's normal in Ely and Cardiff to a teenager growing up is things like, you know, selling a bit of weed and, you know, other stuff, you know, selling drugs. It's a lot more accessible. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah,
It's, you know, whereas up the valleys, you'd have to know a specific person which might live miles away. In Ely, it's so available, isn't it?
Yeah. Did you ever try exploiting that? Like, you know, being down Ely, going back up to the valleys with stuff?
Yeah. I started like selling a bit of drugs and things and making wrong choices and, you know, took drugs myself.
Yeah.
And that's when things started to change. Do you know what I mean? That's when people started noticing the difference. I mean, you know, a night before my accident, my mother come in my bedroom and she said, Ash, I don't know what you're doing, but you've changed. She said, if you don't change whatever it is you're doing, something's going to happen and you're going to regret it. Some things, she said, I don't know what. And I just said, oh, Mum, get out. Do you know what I mean? Go on, get out. You do my head in. Day after, crashed my motorbike.
Wow. It's like they know, innit?
Yeah, it was weird. It was weird. She said, oh, you know, a picture of you just come flying off the wall. And she just felt like she had to come up. Like, it was so strange. I was thinking, oh, shut up. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Go, get out. But...
What were some of the challenges for you trying to adapt to a city life then?
Trying to fit in. Do you know what I mean? You got all people saying, you know, oh, yes, bruv, and all that. you're trying to say that, like, do you know what I mean? That lingo.
The lingo, yeah.
Trying to fit in. And eventually, when I did develop a bit more of a strong Cardiff accent, it's gone now, but when I did develop a stronger accent when I was in Ely all the time, I'd get taken the piss out of up the valleys. Do you know what I mean? Oh, what are you speaking stupid for? Why are you speaking like you want to be from London, do you, or something? Do you know what I mean? So it was always like a lot of tit for tat, you know, but you just can't win. Do you know what I mean? You get banter up the valleys more than sort of, you know, more than anything. But when you're out and someone hears you're from Ely, they make remarks, do you know what I mean? They say, oh, Ely boy, but they're Ely gangster wannabe, do you know what I mean?
Even within Cardiff, that is, Ely's kind of like,
yeah,
like singled out, you know?
100%. And like with me back in the day, do you know what I mean? I got to a stage where I didn't sort of hold anything back. I was violent most weekends. Sometimes, you know, out of just sheer frustration, like, do you know what I mean? Like, what are you looking at? Like, my attitude kind of changed.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as I went to the city, I went from being someone who wouldn't be forthcoming to a fight and stuff like that. But after a bit of time in Ely, I felt like I had something to prove to the Valley people. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, I don't take any shit anymore.
Yeah, Ely's a lovely place, by the way, guys. Just want to put that out there. Like, there's some great guys.
No, it is. It is. Do you know what I mean?
And within community as well. Like,
you can't explain the community. Like, when something happens, you know, any tragedy or anything like that, Ely pull together. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, I'm not disrespecting either place. They're just so different. And when you're in your teens, trying to fit in both of them, you end up like somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And then it's difficult then to live a life in either one.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, like, again, like, I'm trying to picture, like, you know, you're growing up, you're going between a small town, a small village, really, in the valleys, to actually coming to one of the biggest council estates in what it was, I think, in Europe. Yeah. It was for a long time, Ely. I look at you now and I think this guy is so respectable. He's so calm, you know, and I wouldn't, even with your voice now, you're just like a gentle guy.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's taken this accident for this to happen, but who were you, Ash, before this accident? Like, were you a violent person? Like, you know?
Yeah, I wasn't a bully, but I always felt like when I was out and on the lash, I always felt like I had a point to prove. Looking back now, I know how ridiculous that was, and I was just being an arsehole, do you know what I mean? But, you know, someone would look at me the wrong way, and I'd just go, what? And walk up to them, like, do you know what I mean? And just start conflict. And you know, looking back now, it was
stupid.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And that didn't even leave me after my accident. Do you know what I mean?
You were still stepping.
It took some time. Do you know what I mean? I remember one time, you know, I was out with a girl, like, do you know what I mean? And a good friend of mine, and someone touched her, do you know what I mean? And I literally pushed straight away into him, like I was under the influence of alcohol.
Fucking hell.
And like, I was like, get off. And he said something like, oh, what's she doing out with a cripple like you or something? So I pushed him. And you know what? I shouldn't have laughed, like, but he turned around, punched me straight in the eye. I tipped out my wheelchair backwards, right? He runs up to my wheelchair, just jumps over my wheelchair and just starts filling me in on the floor.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, and he had a fill in then from everyone who was pushing him past, you know what I mean? But yeah.
All right, Ash, we've gone a bit into your background a bit, you know, Kevin and going to Ely, back and forth, trying to adapt into city life. How did that turn into you having a life-changing injury?
So it just gave me like no sort of fear, do you know what I mean? I didn't have any sort of thought for any consequences and things like that, because, do you know what I mean, when you're going out doing certain things in the city and you don't really think of the consequences back then. Do you know what I mean? So I watched the second half. I was sort of working and watching the second half of the football and went to the pub.
Sorry, what football was this?
So May 2008, FA Cup final against Portsmouth, and that was the day of my accident. So I was watching in the pub, second half, had a couple of pints, got on the train home, got off in Ystrad, went to the pub, had a couple more pints, and I met a couple of boys I hadn't seen since school. And even thinking back then, do you know what I mean? I was like trying to prove myself, like, oh yeah, I'm not the Ashley I was in school kind of thing. I don't know who I thought I was, do you know what I mean? But I said, boys, come out, we'll have a night out. And they were like, all right then. I was thinking, oh, I'll show them a night out. And I had to go home and get changed. So I phoned someone up for a lift. Went in my house to get changed, me and my cousin Anthony, and I come out. I said, "Oh, I was half cut, you know. I was drunk," and I said, "Oh, Aunt, I can't remember this, but this is what happened." I said, "Oh, Aunt, I'm going to take my bike to the bottom of the street and back, purely like just showing off." Do you know what I mean? I wasn't even a big motorbike rider, like, do you know what I mean? I just bought one for
Fit in.
Yeah, to fit in. Do you know what I mean? I bought one to fit in, and in fact, I swapped my car for it. You know, I was 19, didn't have a license. I had a 2-litre Vectra, and I swapped that for a bike. And the guy I swapped it off was like, "Look, don't ride this until it's fixed, you know." And I was like, "I won't." He was like, "Promise me." And I was like, yeah. Thinking, yeah, whatever. Drove it home, and but on that day, back to that day, got a bit way late there.
Sorry.
On that day, I just wanted to show off and show my cousin. Don't know what I wanted to show him, to be honest. Just wanted to show off. I went down to the bottom of my mother's street. I turned around, and I flew back up the street. And that's it. That's all I remember then. The next thing I remember was weeks later, waking up. So what had happened is I'd flown back up the street, lost control of the bike, head first straight into a concrete pillar. So the corner of a pillar hit my neck there. So as you can see, this, I've got a big scar down there. The concrete pillar snapped into 3 and went into next door's garden. I was out of it. Do you know what I mean? And my mother said, all I remember was thinking, that's Ash. So it was right outside my mother's house. So my mother came out, and in my mum's words, I was laid on the floor, white. She said, I looked at you and thought, you're dead. She thought I was dead. So the blood was pooling in my neck, getting bigger and bigger. So the carotid artery, I severed that. So that's the main artery taking blood from your body to your brain. So instead of going to my brain, it was pooling out in my neck. And, ambulance came and everything. Turns out I'd broke my neck in like 4 places, my back in 3 places. And I was driven to Prince Charles Hospital in Merthyr. Loads of people heard about it at this point and followed the ambulance to hospital, so much that they had to say, look, you've all got to go, because outside A&E was just a lot of people apparently. And my family was sent in to say goodbye, because they were going to move me to the Heath, where they was going to, try and fit a stent and that. And they told my family that if he wakes up, he's going to be in a vegetative state. So to me, I didn't go through any of that. I was out, do you know what I mean? They had to go through it all. And it was all just to show off. You know what I mean? People get away with that every day. I did it once, and and crashed my bike. Do you know what I mean? The next year and a half, I went in hospital when I was 19 as an inpatient. I came out when I was 21, or just before I was 21, I think it was. Spent a year and a half in intense rehab. But before that, when I woke up, I just remember thinking, I can't move. And when I say I can't move, like neck down, I could not move. Tried speaking, I couldn't speak. And I remember just a bunch of what I thought was weirdos, like, do you know what I mean? Just around me holding up picture boards and stuff like that. And saying, blink once for yes, twice for no. Do you know what I mean? That was my communication at first. So things were really, serious. And I still can't explain it to this day what it feels like when you're just seeing people around your bed. So I had a halo in, which was screwed into my skull, to keep me from moving my neck. All my family were around me, sad, and I just couldn't understand why. I didn't really know what had happened, but I knew something was really, really down, really wrong. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, so there was.
That is frightening.
Yeah, my life changed.
It's crazy to think, we all make mistakes in life. And when we're young, we make a lot of mistakes. Some people get away with it. I know you're living life to your fault now, and you seem like you're very happy in life, but do you just always look back at what if?
Always. I think anybody who says they question what their life would be like is not being truthful, to be honest with you, because you always think, what if? What I will say is, as the years go on, it gets a lot easier. But if anybody says living with a disability, after growing up completely able-bodied, you've got to learn everything again. You've got to learn to walk again. So I'd give you a little bit of a rundown of what rehab was like. So I was flat on my back. Before I went to rehab even, I could speak at this point, and I remember saying to my dad, if this is what things are like, will you help me to end it? And what was so nice about his response was he didn't tell me that I was stupid. He didn't say, no, he obviously didn't know what to say, but he said, just hold on in there. He said, impossible is nothing. He said, hold on in there. And, I've got a tattoo, impossible is nothing, on my arm now. Do you know what I mean? And that response to me was like, yeah, hold on, there's hope. And that's what I did. I took it day by day. A funny story, I was like, right, when am I getting into rehab? That's when my mind starts changing, I was like, right, when we get into rehab? And the nurses used to say, as soon as you can breathe for yourself. Like, do you know what a tracheostomy is? It's a tube that goes in your neck. Okay. So I couldn't cough or anything, still paralysed. In fact, I had one arm come back at this point. And I said, when am I going to rehab? Because to me, I was going to be normal again. I was going to be walking and, a lot of people say, what's normal, but you know what I mean? I was going to be back doing everything I was. And in my own mind, I was ready to get there and prove to everyone that, this is just temporary. Do you know what I mean? The reality hadn't set in yet, but the nurses was like, when you can breathe for yourself, when you haven't got a tracheostomy, you can go to rehab, and that's when, they'll try and get the most of your potential. So they're very much like worst case scenario, and everything else is a bonus, So they told me, look, chances of walking, this is not going to happen. Do you know what I mean? and you're refusing to believe that. You're saying, you watch, get me to Rookwood, so much that the nurses put me down. I was still in intensive care or ICU, I can't remember what one. All my visitors went home, and I pulled my own tracheostomy out because I wanted to get to rehab that much. I pulled my tracheostomy out, threw it on the floor, and then I remember thinking, shit, there's a hole in my neck now. What am I going to do? So I grabbed a hula hoops packet that was left there by one of my visitors or something, like folded that up with one hand and just stuffed it in my neck. So the nurses come in, like, and I'm there stuffing a hula hoop packet to cover up this hole to say, like, let's go. Do you know what I mean? So it hadn't really hit in or set in, really, that what had happened to me. Do you know what I mean? If someone had told me, look, you're going to be in a wheelchair the rest of your life, you know, I would have told them to F off, or do you know what I mean? Or something like that. But it took a long time, and a year and a half in hospital. You know, I went to Rookwood. First question I asked, when you're going to get me walking? Do you know what I mean? Because you've got that, like, something you've done all your life with no effort. You've took it for granted all your life. And it took a long time, you know, but I was flat on my back in Rookwood for that long that they had to incrementally sit me up in the bed and, like, you pass out and things like that because you're so used to being flat, your blood is not being pumped around your body. Do you know what I mean?
It's like deep diving in it. You know, if you rise up quickly, the blood pressure you could.
Yeah, and then you've got to learn to
Crazy.
sit yourself up. You know, which doesn't happen. You know, I was in a massive chair with a high back chair where people were pushing me and stuff like that. You know, it's so many stages that you have to go through. It's, you know,
And when you're going through all that, how is it sounds cliche, doesn't it? You know, you can't feel nothing, but in your mind, what is your mind saying? Like, what's the feelings mentally? Can you feel pain with your mind, if that makes sense?
Yeah, of course, yeah. When everyone goes home, you've got a lot of visitors coming in. Do you know what I mean? When this type of thing happens, you've got a lot of support, got a lot of visitors. You know, when they go, you put on a brave face for them. Do you know what I mean? And when they go and you're in that bed and you're thinking, like, what am I going to do? You know, what happens now? I'm 19. All my friends are talking about what they're going to do on the weekend and all stuff like that. And you're just thinking, gone. Do you know what I mean? My life is gone. And that was difficult. More than I let on. You know, now I would open up a bit more, but yeah, it was really hard. Too much to explain in such a short podcast, really, for the different stages. Do you know what I mean? I remember celebrating being able to get from my bed into a chair using what they call a slide board, which is a board they put there and they help you across this board into the chair. That was something I couldn't wait to tell my family about. Oh, look what I've done. You know, I can do this now. You know, I remember my family coming in and being proud because I'm sat up in a wheelchair. Do you know what I mean? In a big high back wheelchair. Because it took so long to get there and a lot of work to get there. Do you know what I mean?
Is there words to describe that?
No. No words. So much uncertainty there, you know, considering, you know, I was in Rookwood for 14 months. Do you know what I mean? And there was 4 suicides in that time.
We don't hear about that, see. Rookwood's up the road from where I live, and
Yeah.
you don't hear about that.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's
Similar stories were they as well, or?
yeah, so I won't go into the details for their sort of families and things like that, but yeah, there was four individuals died by suicide because they just couldn't see hope, and it's totally understandable because you're thinking,
And how are they? Sorry, how would they? How are they taking their own lives in Rookwood? How would they do that?
This, again, I'd rather like stay away from method and things like that.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
the one person actually came up to me and, we talk about signs. Sometimes the one person came up to me and said, "Go on, you can do this. We got two options. We're either leaving you on our feet or in a box." Sadly, it was the latter for him, and
Because he couldn't see himself.
couldn't
walking.
see any life. And I think we all felt like that at that time, that, anyone will tell you the same, that as soon as you have such a drastic change, do you know what I mean? I had to learn to go for a wee again. I had to learn to go for a number two again, do you know what I mean? It's all sort of, you got to relearn everything. I had to learn to talk again in the beginning. Once I could talk, it was, what can I do? I'm right-handed, you know what I mean? This hand is still not, still quite badly paralysed, Thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to work? Am I ever going to get a girlfriend? Do you know what I mean? Why would someone want to be with a wheelchair user? So many things, like, and at 19, that's quite hurtful, do you know what I mean? When you're thinking, no one is even going to be interested in me, do you know?
So what was you're seeing people take their own lives. You're in the same thought process yourself. So what was your lifeline? What was your get out of jail card?
So for me, when I was in Rookwood, right, and I could move about, we had a laugh. All of us in chairs. We all had a lot in common. We all had understanding. We used to almost like play top trumps, like who's the most disabled, like, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. Do you know what I mean? You only got a leg off. What's the matter with you? Like, there's a lot of banter, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No judgment.
You need that.
Oh, it was brilliant. We had the staff were phenomenal. I ended up nearly being kicked out of Rookwood myself because I was still in that sort of
Boisterous.
show off. Do you know what I mean? So, I can talk more about that if you want, but for this now, I'm saying my lifeline was sport, because I started playing sport. Thought, this is something I can achieve. So that was my hope. I thought, right, here's a life here. Here's a lifeline. Met Jim Monkley, the Welsh coach, and he sort of was a bit dubious at first.
Sorry, for the people, can you just elaborate on what sport?
Table tennis.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. So I played table tennis. So I started playing in the table tennis club, and they have like a mini, like Olympics kind of thing for...
In Rookwood, this is it, or?
In Stoke Mandeville.
Okay.
But for patients in rehab.
Okay.
I went there and I won that for Rookwood Hospital. Came back and I just thought, this is my thing.
Purpose.
I thought I could do this, and I wasn't really a sportsman before. So I went then to the coach. I said, look, when I'm out, can I be involved? He said, oh, we'll wait and see, hold off. See where you are, because getting out of hospital is really difficult. And for me, the move from having all that support, I had to wait for a flat, moved to Splot, didn't know anyone. And that was the most difficult time. More difficult than being in intensive care, more difficult than all what I'd been through. Because all of a sudden, people are getting on with their lives. The attention's not on you. And in a one-bedroom flat, it's very lonely when you don't know anyone. You don't drive. And that's when I started thinking again about, I don't want to do this. I remember laid in bed once, and for about a week I just thought, the later I can get up, the better, because I only have to get up, have something to eat. And then as soon as I did that, I was thinking, might as well go back to bed. because it was the only place I felt that I wasn't in my wheelchair. B, it was the comfiest place, and C, there was nothing better to do than to lay in my bed. You know, go on social media, talk to people. And I thought, is this what my life is? And that's when I remember phoning my dad one night and saying, Dad, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this. I can't live like this. And, another lifeline came then, where sort of I started meeting people over time in my block. And then, my uncle, who I hadn't seen I hadn't seen him for a few years. My mum phoned me and said, Uncle Nino's asked what he can do for you. Is there anything he can do to help? And I said, no. As you're doing it, oh, no, I'll be all right. And he said he'd pay for your driving lessons. And for me, that as soon as I had my car, I begun to sort of make a life for me in sport before that. But as soon as I got my car, that gave me back the equivalent to my legs, really, because I could go out and see people whenever I wanted.
Yeah. Do you need a work uniform? Want to start a clothing brand? Or maybe you have a football kit that needs a logo printed? Well, if I was you, I'd get in touch with the Re-Inspire Printing Company down Treforest Industrial Estate for the finest printing and embroidery in Wales. I use them for my custom-made mankini, but you could use them for t-shirts, hats, hoodies, and many, many other things.
I wasn't stuck in that flat.
So, when you're finally out, so I'm assuming, like, you could feel your, like, what is your fullest potential now? What have you got in you?
Yeah.
Can you feel your feet and your...
So it's impaired feeling. But I can feel, I'm lucky enough I can walk on crutches a bit. So my recovery has been
amazing.
Absolutely, I couldn't have wished for any more. Do you know what I mean? I can walk into my family's house now and see them. And
is that still improving, or has this been something this was accomplished a long time ago and it's stayed the same? What is it?
Yeah, it's stayed the same now for a good number of years. And, I had to weigh up, look, I can walk on crutches. But what's sort of more practical in life? And something that I had so much hate for is a wheelchair. At first, I'm not living in a wheelchair. It actually become like a part of me kind of thing. I can't just make a cuppa and just walk into the living room and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's more efficient for me. I can achieve more in my wheelchair, and that's what I've done. I walk when I need to, and I walk to keep things going. And I'm more than happy with that, which I would never have thought, in those darker times, I would never have thought that I would be happy.
Amazing. Honestly, that is truly remarkable how you have turned that around from literally, you nearly died, basically.
Yeah.
You come so close to death. And to say that you might not even get out of hospital, and now to be here, you've got a life as well. That's the main thing. It's not just, you're not just existing.
Yeah. I got a wife. I got a 5-year-old daughter.
Amazing.
I work. I'm doing my degree at the moment. Do you know what I mean? I've got that sort of that life, and sometimes I don't even think of myself as disabled. Do you know what I mean?
No.
I do not even think of myself as disabled, and I never thought I'd say that either.
Well, if you want to go in a bit about how you met your wife and because I think that's interesting as well.
Yeah. So in Rookwood, I was like quite a cheeky chap. You know what I mean? And I used to talk to the
dirty
women.
bugger, still, like nothing changed.
No. So, I used to, again, don't know who I thought I was, but I used to try and charm people. Do you know what I mean? And
That's good. You still had your humour and your charm.
yeah. So I still have my humour. And I came back because part of my duties on the Welsh squad was to come back and coach and encourage grassroots players in Rookwood. And I went in, the nurses were like, oh, because they were I was back in their good books after an incident that happened. And they were like, oh, I'm surprised you haven't chatted up the new blonde that's in there. And I was
chat them all up.
And I was like, what? Oh, I try. But this one worked. And I thought, oh, nice blonde, is it? Where is she too? I'll go and have a chat. Had a chat. And we didn't speak for ages. And then she put on Facebook then that she was hungover. So in Rookwood is a different... You still go out and have a drink and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you live there. Yeah, we used to go out down...
And my nan used to work there, my nan and grandpa.
Oh, nice. So yeah, you still go out and you've still got a life, but you've got a rehab schedule to stick to. Do you know what I mean? But she put on her social media, oh, you know, I'm a bit hungover. So I was like, inbox. Inbox. I was like, look, you just had my new car, I think. And I was like, oh, I'll bring you a McDonald's if you want.
Oh, romantic that was.
Honest to God, like my cousin, funny enough, he was with me. I was looking after my little cousin. He was only young and he's got autism. And he sat there for 2 hours while I was talking and, you know, grafting basically, trying to think, oh, yeah, I get a date up with this now. And we come out to the car and he looked at me and he went, you're going to marry Herbert.
Oh, never.
He said, you're going to marry Herbert.
How old was he?
9, 10
Mad.
maybe. He could have been even younger, I can't remember.
You could see it.
And he was like, you're going to marry Herbert, I'm telling you. And I was like, oh yeah, he's a Valley boy as well. So he came and stayed in my flat in Splot and stuff. Yeah, and then we're married, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, we're married now. We got, we both work and we both,
And
you know,
you've got kids with...
Yeah, so... Yeah,
so it's all working down below then?
It is working down below, but it's adoption we had. We decided to go down.
Right.
Yeah,
no, I feel terrible.
Yeah.
No, wait, so
no.
you would...
No, yeah, so like, you know, there was no sort of real reason.
That's
apart
amazing,
from minor
though, you
things.
adopted
yeah,
a child.
Yeah. Imagine having to prove that you can look after a baby when
How
you're
was
both
that?
in wheelchairs. Really hard, but the support was there. Do you know what I mean? They were like, and you know, I'm so used to speaking.
That's amazing, bro.
I'm so used to speaking openly.
Kesto's in the background looking just like... It's amazing, that.
I'm so used to speaking openly. Like they come in once a week to get to know everything about you, everything about your family. And we both just said, look, just talk to us openly about the disability. We know what it is. You wouldn't be doing your job if you weren't. Just ask us what, and we'll jump through the hoops. Do you know what I mean? We went through a long battle with each other, trying to prove ourselves, and do you know what, it's worth it.
Can you go through, if there has been, some of your lowest points, other than the ones you've talked, but like some of the lowest points you've been at since being in your wheelchair? And
yeah, so I remember thinking I was so nervous to go out. Do you know what I mean? Because I thought, what if there's not a toilet I can get into? You know, if I go out with the boys, they're all just going to forget. Like, they don't understand that it comes with a lot. Do you know what I mean? When you're just adapting. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got to really build up to going out. And one of the boys one day, it was his best man, you know, Carwyn. He was like, come out, man. And I'd put it off to go in my bed. And one night I thought, do you know what, I'm going to do it. And the story was quite funny because we went to Oceania, we did. And we were out there and I was like, Carwyn. He was my go-to, like, you know, I was like, you promise me you'll look after me if I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be out without any support, you know. I'll look after you, bet. I went, Carwyn, I need a shit. Right, honestly, right? And he went, I got your back, bet. lifted me through Oceana, right? There was no disabled toilet at this point that was free. And I was like, I'm desperate. Carried me down to the basement, sat me on toilet, he went, right, you can do the rest. Went upstairs. He forgot I was on the shitter downstairs, right? He was wheeling my chair and all that. He was having so much fun
Party
in my
tricks.
chair. He went out into the street. That long he was messing about in my chair. Oceana's shut, and I'm still on the shitter downstairs. No signal.
I don't even know that's funny or
Honestly, about an hour later, he come in laughing his head off. Sorry, but. And you know, I brought it up in the speech. I was his best man, and I was like,
Oh,
yeah,
fucking brilliant.
Yeah. And then he got kicked out of my wedding for riding a gypsy horse with a bottle of wine. So he's one of those, like, he's like Stifler, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't invite him to any family occasions kind of thing. But yeah, I love him. He's, you know.
Any times you can talk about human interaction and show another world it's a good place? Have you ever had any people really do good deeds for you?
I think a lot of people do. I think there's a lot of goodness in the world, but we only hear about the bad. Do you know what I mean? The amount of times people say to me, do you want a hand? Do you want to help? Do you know what I mean? I pushed through my village today and these two kids just walked up to me and said, do you want a hand, mate?
Oh.
Do you know what I mean? Like, they always... I like to be independent and do it all on, you know, me and my wife, we're both, you know, completely independent, you know, and we're lucky for that. But there's a lot of do-gooders. There's a lot of people who try their best to do good. It's quite condescending and patronising sometimes. You know, we can't go anywhere without particularly older people saying, who's winning the race? You know what I mean? And things like that, because we're both on wheels. Yeah, who's winning the race? She's beating you. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, yeah, she is. She's fast as hell. Do you know what I mean? She got two good hands, but yeah, we just get fed up with it. And one time, Becky turned around and went, who's winning the race for you too? Do you know, it's just the same things, but people are meaning well. Do you know what I mean? Like, I had a woman once, I was behind her in the shopping and she was having a right moan. She'd had a bad day. She was having a right moan to the woman who's serving her, and she just looked at me and went, I am so sorry. I went, what are you sorry for? She was like, there's me complaining and look. And
You felt like a fucking right.
And me, I'm just an arse myself. I'll just have a laugh, like, so I was just like...
I think a lot of it probably, you know, it is just trying
they
to keep
mean
you
well.
happy. They mean well, they're not.
100%, you know what I mean? But I was like, what's the matter with me? I've had a great day. I've frigging done loads. Do you know what I mean? Well, do you know what I mean? That's
Mine's better than yours.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, I've, you know, when I was able-bodied, I'd never have done half marathon. I'd never have won British championships. I would never have got a British #1 and things like that in my sport.
In table tennis.
Because I was shit at sport. Do you know what I mean? I was the last one picked in football. Do you know what I mean? That's obviously I'm now. Do you know what I mean?
Ashley.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, people would literally pay people not to have me on their team. I was that bad, but that sense of achievement for me was just everything.
Yeah, and it's the drive in it to prove points, and when you prove a point, you always go that extra mile, don't you?
Yeah, like I smoked a lot of weed in the past. As soon as table tennis, and they were like, "It's got to go." I was like, "No worries."
Yeah,
I was just that tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I was in table tennis, and something told me that it was time to go and do more with life. You know, I didn't want to be finishing table tennis at 40, 50 and being like, what now? Do you know what I mean? And when I finished table tennis, sport and stuff, I had another bit of an empty patch. Do you know what I mean? I had my wife and you know, that's brilliant. With that sport, and that goal was gone, so I had to like restart again then.
I do genuinely think, like, in life, we all need someone to settle down with. Other half, soulmate, whatnot. But that can't just be it. we all need another outlet,
Yeah.
whether that be a hobby, whether that be a job, with a profession. We need that. It ain't enough, and nobody should take that to offense if you're in a relationship.
Yeah. Me and Becky, we was in sport together. We was on the same table tennis team, you know.
Oh, sick.
And
Doubles or?
No, we was in Wales. We played for Wales, you know what I mean? And like the arguments that caused, man, do you know what I mean? Like, but we knew that we both had to do our own thing as well. And that's when it, you know, considering I've always said, I don't want a disabled girlfriend. 'Cause one's blimmin' hard enough, do you know what I mean? Getting 2 chairs in the car all the time. And
you're together though, man. That's what's good. Like you're looking after each other.
Yeah.
You can both see where you're both coming from.
Yeah.
Nothing can be condescending.
Yeah.
You know?
And again, she's like, there's no shit. We're both in wheelchairs. So you haven't got that one, mate.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Don't pull that card, mate.
Yeah, don't pull that one. Do you know what I mean? I remember saying like, Hoover, I can't Hoover. Now I'm like, better Hoover. Do you know what I mean? But yeah.
So what's a day-to-day ritual for you?
Day-to-day ritual, I get up when my daughter says I got to get up because she just jumps on me, do you know what I mean? And we get on with the day. It's no different. You know, everything takes a bit longer, so you get up earlier. Do you know what I mean? When you're disabled, you're a full-time problem solver because everything is a problem. Do you know what I mean? Just you don't think about it anymore. You know, when it's hammering down with rain, you can't just run to the car. You've got to go to the car, take your wheelchair apart. Lucky for me, I get it in the boot. Like walk around the side of the car, sit in the car, you're soaking wet more than anyone else would be. And that's just one little problem.
So the same of getting up earlier, you just got to make sure you got your weather app on you all the time.
And you got to think, it's like, I don't want to be too cliche or any like inspirational speaker and stuff because I do. But you've got to think 4 moves ahead about everything in life. And that's a skill you develop over time. And you know what?
It's adapting.
You know, you do it. You make the mistakes by going out and pissing yourself because you didn't plan your journey too much. Do you know what I mean? You go out and make stupid mistakes and fall and, you know, because you don't think of these things. You know, you go to parties and then end up thinking, how the bloody hell am I going to get in here and how am I going to get about? But the more you sort of stick with it, you know, it's not even a thought process now. Do you know what I mean? I had to put Connie in the car, my daughter, you know. When we're doing that, you've got to plan everything. You've got to put Connie in the car, buckle Connie in.
Yeah.
Then you've got to take your chair apart and that. Imagine that when it's peeing down with rain. Do you know what I mean?
It's so inspiring. There is the one topic I want to spoke about quickly on the induction. Motorcycle accidents, quad bikes, these things seem to be a common occurrence, not just in our city, but everywhere. How do we stop that? How do we, prevent it?
You can't drive through Ely without being overtaken by a quad on the back wheels. Do you know what I mean? It's happening every day, isn't it? How we stop is by hopefully talking about it and saying, look, I know it's good, I know it's fun, but like we're not Superman. Do you know what I mean? We're not invincible. I never even thought that I would crash into that wall. Yeah,
you didn't have like the what's the word? Like the
it don't happen to me.
I'm settled with I know what I'm doing. I'm wary of the consequences. You didn't have that, did you? With some things it's like it comes with the territory.
It won't happen to me. That type of mentality, do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm sure you've thought about things in the past, that wouldn't happen to me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't end up following that route.
Good.
And it happens, do you know what I mean? And anything can happen to everyone. Anything at all is possible. Like even the good things are possible. And it's when we talk about like the good things and the good things being possible, we never say the bad things are possible too. We all talk about...
It's true.
We all talk about, how the good things are possible. You can do anything, you can do this and that. When it's talking about the bad things, it's like, oh, don't be so stupid. you'll end up blimmin' breaking your neck, and then that's it.
That's a very good point.
There's never someone saying, look at these people, look at what they've done, and look at what they're talking about now. So by people who've been through my situation, and they haven't all got to be Paralympians. Do you know what I mean? They haven't all got to have done anything amazing, but they've just got to be real. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To me, it's more powerful coming from someone who's real, someone who's an everyday person, rather than someone who's, celebrating a gold medal in the Olympics, celebrating, that kind of, why are you not talking about that before your success? Do you know what I mean? And they might do, but it just needs to be more heard, I think.
There's one thing I want to finish on, which we do with every podcast, is if you could look down the camera, is there anything that you want to leave the people with? Awareness, inspiration, whatever. Down that camera.
So I would say every choice that you make, no matter how big or small this choice you make is, they've all got a consequence. Some are good and some are bad. But they all mount up to bigger things. So I would say every little decision, every little choice, if you get sort of peer pressured and things, think of the bigger picture. Always think, what if? What if I, a line of cocaine and kill someone instantly? Do you know what I mean? Just think about, okay, what could happen here? And then make your decision. But what else I would say is, if you do make bad decisions, it's not too late, because you can always find another way. It might be a long way round, it might be hard, but, with support and talking, it can always help.
It's amazing. Thank you so much. Honestly. That was amazing, honestly. It's such an inspiration. Like a real inspiration. And we've been laughing and joking before you come on, and just...
Yeah.
I think your attitude on life should be replicated by many.
One more message is that, there's a stigma to a lot of things. Stigma to suicide, stigma to talking about everything. It's also a stigma of talking about disability. Do you know what I mean? Did you feel awkward when I came in? Did you think, right, what shall I say? What shall I... Just a little bit?
Naturally, subconsciously, 100%.
Yeah, and that's 100% understandable. Remove all that, we're just people.
Yeah. Quickly, what about Javeno Maclean? You watched the podcast. Did you watch his? What's your outlook on his way of treating, truthfully?
I think it was a breath of fresh air to see someone who was like, yeah, get out of your chair. What can you do? No, sort of, I've approached PTs in the past who've literally said, beyond kind of what I'm trained in, mate, sorry. So they're turning down, I had one PT I approached, grabbed it by the horns, Richie Reese. He's got a gym now in Caerphilly.
Big up Richie Reese.
Yeah. So he was a big part of my journey, because he's the one who said, right, let's look at what you can do. And he reminded me of...
Javeno.
Yeah, 100%. I think what Javeno does is over sort of plays it, because that's what you've got to do at first. If nobody is going there, you've got to overplay it.
Yeah, of course, you got to, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? When it becomes normal, and it's like, yeah, in a wheelchair, right, what can you do? It was his words one day. He said, what can you do? We're not going to focus on what you can't do. What can you do? And we're going to go there and we're going to push it a little bit more.
Yeah.
I thought that was brilliant.
Amazing. Honestly, Ash, thank you so much for coming on. Quickly, maybe, because we're here, does Kester want to come on the camera quickly? Come on, let's just... Come on and just say a big thank. Come on. So this guy let us have the studio. We said it at the beginning, right? I just want to say it. Come on. Yeah, we're going to do a podcast with him and he won't come on camera. No, I just want to say a big thank you for letting us film here, honestly. I've said I've bigged you up, but what's the I know the initials, what's the name of the actual graffiti thing?
Hurt So Good.
Hurt So Good, yeah? Yeah. Go and check them out on Instagram, on all the social media and stuff as well. Sesto's is on, I keep saying Sesto as Casto, but yeah, we're going to be doing a podcast with him soon as well and a meet, so watch out for that. But yeah, I just want to say a big thank you for everyone for tuning in. Ashley, thank you so much. It's been a real inspiration. You've made me feel a lot better than myself. You know, not be so hard on myself and have a bit more hope in life, you know, and I hope we've reached out to a lot of people as well.
Yeah.
If you like content like this, please hit the like button, share, subscribe, and we'll see you all soon. Stay central.
The Central Club.